Hi everybody, it's Ms. Annie from the Youth Room at the Wakefield Library. It is Wednesday, it is 2 o'clock p.m., and I am back here for another Wednesday Read Aloud. Today we are going to be finishing up the final 4 chapters of Zetta Elliott's Dragons in a Bag. This is just part of our summer reading program. This is one of our weekly programs, and we do have some special programs, such as tomorrow we are going to be having a Zoom program, Camping for Kids and Families. That's going to be on Thursday, July 30th at 7 o'clock p.m. And we're going to be singing some songs, we'll be doing some crafts, we'll be sharing some stories around our own campfires and setting up our own forts and tents at home to do a sort of virtual camping event all together. Registration is required for that, and you can go on to wakefieldlibrary.org and go right to our calendar page for more information on that and also how to register as well. So let's jump right into our program for today. So when we last left off, Jax has been sent back to Brooklyn by Ma, who is his neighbor and also a witch. He's accompanying her in trying to return these dragons to a magical realm because there's no magic left in Brooklyn where they live. So they're trying to find a place where these dragons can thrive. It doesn't really go as planned. They end up way back in time in the age of dinosaurs, and Ma has actually stayed behind there in order to protect Jax when she sends him all the way back to Brooklyn. Jax is kind of freaking out though because he really wants this mission to go well because he wants to become Ma's apprentice and learn magic. So he's trying to figure out how can we get Ma back? We need her back. So he calls on his best friend Vikram, who doesn't really bring help, but definitely brings trouble. And by trouble, I mean his little sister, Kavita. Kavita immediately breaks the only 2 rules that there are about these dragons, which Jax is guarding while he's trying to find Ma again. She takes them out of their bag, which you're not supposed to do, and she feeds them sweet treats, which you are definitely not supposed to do. The dragons immediately begin growing in size and get sort of attached to Kavita and get really interested in her. Jax manages to, get them back into Ma's purse where they are supposed to stay hidden, and Vikram and Kavita leave. Then Jax finds Trouble again. A little bit different this time. This guy's name is literally Trouble, or Trub for short. And Trub is going to help Jax find Ma. They're going to use this transporter and figure out where she is and try to help her and return these dragons. Trub, as it turns out, is not only someone that's able to lend a hand with magic, he's also Jax's grandfather. And Jax had no idea he even had a grandfather, especially one who was, living in Brooklyn and doing magic. So this has been really a day just full of surprises for Jax, and he's really hoping that no more come, because after all, his mother, Mama, is spending the entire day in court. And she's trying to make sure that she and Jax are not evicted from their apartment. And then Jax is also quite worried as well because he wants to become Ma's apprentice, and his own Mama refused that position when she was a girl. So Jax is a little bit worried that, will he be able to return these dragons? Will he have a home to return to? And what will Mama think when she finds out that he's going to be Ma's apprentice? Or will he be Ma's apprentice? Because things aren't looking too good right now. So let's find out what happens, and we will finish up our reading of Zetta Elliott's Dragons in a Bag. Chapter 10. I take a few steps toward the guardhouse and then realize Trub's heading in the opposite direction. Where are you going? I call after him. Trub crosses the cobblestone road that runs between the park's stone gateposts. Let's use this one instead, he suggests. We don't want to risk another unintended landing. The park is closed to traffic, so I don't have to look both ways before I cross the road and follow Trub over to the other guardhouse. It's identical to the one Ma and I used last time. I watch as Trub pulls 2 thin metal rods from his shirt pocket. He sticks them into the lock in the center of the guardhouse door, and after a few twists of his wrist, the lock clicks open. Trub pulls the door back and gestures for me to go inside. After you, Jax. I climb the 2 short steps, but then turn and face my grandfather. Where are we going exactly? I can't really say, Jax. The transporter reads our intentions, and we intend to find Ma, wherever she is. So, does that mean we're going back to the land of dinosaurs? I ask in my bravest voice. Trub shakes his head. I doubt Ma would still be there. but I think she may be in the vicinity, so to speak. It's possible those dragons you got in that bag pulled the transporter off course. It read their intention instead of Ma's. And the dragons wanted to be with dinosaurs? I guess they wanted to go home, but Ma had something else in mind, and you all landed in Gondwana instead. Gondwana? That's one of the supercontinents. Trub's eyebrows go up, and I can tell he's impressed. That's right, son. How'd you hear about Gondwana? Geography is one of my specialties, I tell him, though technically supercontinents fall under paleogeography. The continents we know today were once merged. Gondwana eventually broke apart from the continents in the southern hemisphere and formed those: Antarctica, Australia, South America, and Africa, which includes Madagascar, Trub adds. I think for a moment. If that's where the dragons were born, then there must still be magic there. Trub nods and says, I expect so. Africa's called the cradle of civilization. Know why? Sure, I reply. That's where the human race started out. Right. And when humans began to migrate, they took magic with them all over the world. So what happened? Trub sighs and looks at the bustling avenue. We both wince as a fire truck races by with its lights flashing and sirens wailing. An ambulance follows close behind, and car horns blast as drivers try to get out of the way. That's a long story, Jax, Trub says in a weary voice. Let's save it for another time. Okay, I say. Trub nods toward the guardhouse. You ready to go get Ma? I nod back at him and step inside the dark, musty guardhouse. Trub climbs in behind me and pulls the door shut. I hear him take a deep breath, so I do the same. Trub rests his hands on my shoulders and says, Try to clear your mind, Jax. Focus on Ma and nothing else. I do as I'm told and picture Ma in the jungle. She holds her cane in one hand and the sparkling crystal in the other. She isn't afraid because she has magic on her side. It's pitch black inside the guardhouse, but I see Ma's face clearly in my mind's eye. We're coming, Ma, I whisper. We're coming back for you. Suddenly, the transporter shoots upward, making my full stomach heave. I clutch Ma's purse to my chest and focus on the picture of her in my mind. Trub's hands rest lightly on my shoulders, and I keep my knees loose so that I bounce like when I'm riding the bus in Brooklyn. The transporter dips and dives and then jerks to the left. Hard. Did we just cross dimensions? I ask Trub. We sure did, he says proudly. Now brace yourself, Jax. We should land in just a few seconds. My heart starts to race. What world will we step into this time? The transporter shudders and then goes still. Just as I open my mouth to ask if we've arrived, the guardhouse plummets to the ground and lands with a thud. Trub squeezes my shoulder. You okay, Jax? He asks. I nod, but then realize Trub needs to hear me say the words out loud. I'm fine, I tell him, and I mean it. I'm nervous, but I'm not afraid. Trub moves his hands from my shoulders to the door. He gives it a good shove, and the black iron door creaks open on stiff hinges. I don't think this transporter has been used in a while, but it seems to have brought us to the right destination. My racing heart slows as I take a deep breath and step out of the guardhouse. I don't need Trub to tell me that we've landed in the realm of magic. This world is totally different from the land of dinosaurs I visited with Ma. The lavender sky above us shimmers with light, even though I can't see the sun or the moon. The air is cool and dry, and butterflies twirl by on a gentle breeze. I take a deep breath and wonder if we're near the sea. I can't tell if the sun has just set or if it's about to rise, but everything in this world seems to be at peace. The guardhouse has landed on a dirt road, and it stretches out before us like a never-ending carpet. On either side of the road are enormous, stately trees that look like their roots are growing into the sky instead of underground. Long turquoise grass moves in the breeze like gentle waves beneath the trees. They all seem to be 100 feet tall with no branches along their trunks except at the very top. The strange sheen on their bark makes me want to hug the tree closest to me, but my arms would never reach around its stout trunk. Even if Trub and Vic and Kavita held hands with me, we couldn't reach around any of these massive trees. So, Trub says after nudging me with his elbow, what do you think? It feels like we've landed on a whole other planet, I exclaim as a blue butterfly tumbles by. Trub laughs and takes a few steps down the road. You coming? I nod and try to keep my mouth from falling open as I walk past the gigantic upside-down trees. I'm so excited, I have to stop myself from skipping and turning cartwheels in the middle of the road. Are we in Madagascar, I ask? Not exactly, Trub replies. Some features of the world we live in are mirrored in the realm of magic. The beautiful ones, mostly. These trees, they're I mean, I finally stopped trying to find the right word and just gaze up at the trees in awe. I don't know how to describe the way I feel. I'm the size of an ant compared to these trees, but I don't feel insignificant. If anything, being near these trees makes me feel important, safe, special. Trub nods as if he understands what I'm trying to say. In Madagascar, there's a place just like this called the Avenue of the Baobabs. The Malagasy, the people who live in Madagascar, they call these trees Renala. It means mother of the forest. That makes perfect sense to me. Being near these magical trees makes me feel like I've got Mama's arms wrapped around me. But then I remember that Mama is actually far away, and that reminds me of our mission. Where's Ma? I asked Trub. She should be around here somewhere, Trub says as he scans the forest of baobabs. How did you know Ma would be here? I ask. I didn't know for sure, Trub replies, but when you showed me that book, I had a feeling Ma might find her way here. Is this where Elroy Jenkins lives? I asked, imagining what it would be like to live in such a magical place. Trub shakes his head. Elroy doesn't really stay in one place. He's more of a nomad. A rolling stone? I ask. Trub nods. I don't know if Ma told you this, Jax, but when it comes to the future of magic, there are two camps. Those who feel the realms should remain separate and those who want the realms to merge. Ma's in the first camp and Elroy's in the second. That's why he sent those dragons to Brooklyn. I expect he thought Ma would come around to his way of thinking on the matter. Which camp are you in? I ask. Trub takes a deep breath. I really don't know, Jax. The realm is a sanctuary for many beings and creatures that just wouldn't be safe in our world. But the longer they stay hidden here, the more foreign and frightening they become to humans. People fear what they don't know, and when you're separated from folks just because you're different, well, our people know what that feels like. Trub's words feel like another riddle. I think maybe he's talking about segregation when black people were kept separate from whites. It's not illegal anymore, but I still have to take the bus to school because Mama doesn't want me going to the school right around the corner where we live. She said I'd learn more in an integrated environment. I wonder what it would be like to live in a world integrated with magical creatures. Maybe we need a third camp, I suggest. I mean, what if we could find a way to build a bridge between the two worlds? Then anyone who wanted to visit could cross over for a little while. Trub places his hand on top of my head and gives my brain an approving squeeze. That's just what we need, Jax. Middle ground. See, that's why we need young folks like you on board. We need fresh ideas and a new way of looking at things. Us old folks are too stuck in our ways sometimes. And speaking of old folks, look who it is. Chapter 11. I clutch Ma's purse and scan up the horizon. Up ahead, there's a bright orange tent with open flaps billowing in the breeze. Beneath it are 3 people. One is sitting on a stool, another is sitting on the ground, and a third is pacing back and forth. I search for Ma's snowy afro, but it is vanishing between the fingers of the woman on the chair. Her own straight black hair is gathered in a single long braid, and her nimble brown fingers are weaving Ma's white hair into tiny cornrows. Before I know what I'm doing, I burst into a sprint and race down the road. Trub's laughter floats in the air behind me, and all 3 people in the tent turn in my direction as a red cloud of dust rises at my heels. It's not easy to run when you have a heavy book bag on your back, plus a purse in your hand, but I reach the tent in less than 20 seconds. I'm so happy to see Ma, it feels like my heart will burst. But for some reason, I don't enter the tent. Instead, I just stand at the edge of the woven reed mat and stare at the 3 elders before me. Ma's still wearing her purple housecoat. Her legs stretch out before her and are crossed at the ankles. Her black leather sneakers sit a few feet away next to her carefully folded coat. On her lap is a cloth napkin, and in her hands, Ma holds a knife and a large fruit that looks like the sun that's missing from the sky. Well, 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 look who it is. You certainly took your time, Ma says with a wink. I can only grin because I'm panting too hard to speak. With the knife, Ma peels the skin away to reveal flesh that's the same warm golden color. She slices off some fruit, but before eating it, Ma tilts her head to address the woman behind her. I told you you'd figure out how to find me. The boy's smart as a whip. The woman nods but keeps her lips pressed together in a straight line. Her sharp eyes sweep over me, and I find myself blushing for some reason. A neon green butterfly flits around her head before landing on her ear. It sits there for several seconds, opening and closing its wings as if sharing a secret with the stern woman. Something tells me she's a witch too, though she and Ma could just be related. Her skin is the color of coffee beans, and she has no wrinkles, though several silver strands are woven into her black braid. The man has stopped pacing and stands with his hands clasped behind his back. He has a shiny brown bald head, glasses, and a white mustache that hides his mouth. He's wearing faded jeans with a hole in the knee and a brightly colored dashiki. The green butterfly vanishes on the breeze when Trub reaches the tent. He immediately shakes hands with the man and says, "Nice to see you again, Professor." "Always a pleasure, Trub," the man replies with a dignified bow. "This is my grandson, Jackson," Trub says with what sounds like pride. "Elroy Jenkins," the man announces before giving me my hand a hearty shake. Then he takes off his round wire-framed glasses and peers into my face. "Strong family resemblance," he muses, as if I were a specimen in the science lab. "Does he share your interest in magic, or does he take after his mother?" Before Trub can answer, Ma interrupts. "Jax is his own person, so don't you start comparing him with anyone else. He's been a big help to me today. Jax, this here's Sis," Ma says, jabbing her thumb in the woman's direction. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," I say, even though Sis doesn't seem happy to meet me. She finishes the last braid and pats Ma's head as she admires her handiwork. Then she gathers up the tufts of white hair that are stuck in the teeth of her wooden comb. She rolls the hair into a ball and holds her palm up to her mouth. With one gentle puff, the ball of hair bursts into flame and vanishes. I've never seen a woman who could breathe fire, but I try not to look shocked in case she takes offense. Trub nods respectfully at Sis before stooping to kiss Ma on the cheek. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Ma," he says. Trub steps back so I can greet Ma, but I still don't move. I can't. My feet that flew over the dirt road a moment ago now feel like lead. Ma sits on the mat, calmly peeling the golden fruit. I want to throw my arms around her and squeeze her as tight as I can, but right now she seems harder to hug than the baobab trees. Ma looks at me and frowns. "What's wrong, boy? Cat out your tongue? Here, have some of this." Ma slices off a juicy wedge of fruit and passes it to me on the knife's blade. I take the slippery slice and shove it in my mouth. I savor the sweet fruit, then ask, "Mango?" "What do you think I was eating?" Ma replies with a spark of mischief in her eye. I shrug and say, "Something magical, I guess." "Can't improve on mangoes," Ma says. Then she nods at the bag I'm holding. "I see you brought my purse. Good work, Jax." I nod and proudly set it down beside her on the mat. "Those dragons give you any trouble?" Ma asks. I glance at Trub and say, "Well, just a little." Then I stick out my chest and add, "Nothing I couldn't handle." Ma sets aside her mango and wipes her hands on the napkin. Then she opens her purse and takes out the red mint tin. She can tell right away that it's empty. "Where are they?" she asks anxiously. I had to move them to the side pocket," I say. I decide not to tell Ma why unless she asks. Ma quickly unzips the side pocket and carefully takes out the sandwich bag. The dragons, bigger than the last time I saw them, strain against the plastic, whining pitifully. I beam with pride, but eventually notice no one else is smiling. In fact, everyone else looks worried. I peer more closely at the plastic bag and realize something is wrong. There are only 2 dragons in the bag. Ma raises her eyes to meet mine. She's not angry, yet, but without meaning to, I've embarrassed Ma in front of her friends. She takes a deep breath and says, "Jax, I've always tried to be honest with you, and now I need you to be honest with me. Did you lose the 3rd dragon?" "No," I cry, blinking back tears of frustration. Sis glares at me. "Did you think you could keep one for yourself?" Stunned, I swallow hard and try to think of something to say. There were 3 dragons when I left Brooklyn, but there are only 2 in Ma's hand now. I drop to my knees and rifle through Ma's purse. "They were there, all 3 of them. I put them in a sandwich bag, but the fire-breathing one melted the plastic, so I thought they'd be safer in the side pocket. I trusted you, Jax," Ma says with obvious disappointment. Sis sucks her teeth and looks at me with disdain. "What did you expect from a mere boy?" My face feels like it's on fire. "But..." The dragon lady turns her full fury on the professor. "I trusted you, Elroy. You swore you would keep my dragon safe." I kept my promise, sis. Your dragons have come to no harm. It's destiny, Elroy proclaims triumphantly. Magic will find its way back to our world no matter how hard you try to keep it out, Ma. Actually, Trub says, I think I know what happened to the last dragon. Nate did say he smelled a thief, and Jax has a little friend with sticky fingers. Right? I really don't want to solve another riddle right now, but as soon as Trub says sticky, I know exactly what he means. Kavita! I shout angrily as if she could hear me. She stole my dragon. My dragon, you mean. I look up to find Sis's laser-like eyes on me. The neon green butterfly has been replaced with another. Its red wings beat so fast it looks like a flame dancing around her stern face. I look down at Ma's empty purse to hide my shame. Ma hands the 2 dragons over to Sis. As soon as she frees them from the plastic bag, they disappear in the folds of her shimmering dress. Ma closes her purse with a click and clicks the latch. Well, she says with a heavy sigh, what do we do now? I jump up and volunteer. I'll go back and get it, Ma. When Vic finds out what his sister's done, she'll be in so much trouble. Too late, Elroy says with a smug smile on his face. They're growing. This Kavita, she fed them, I presume? I avoid Ma's eyes again and nod reluctantly. Elroy claps his hand and hops from one foot to the other. The remaining dragon will have grown attached to this girl already. I could have saved precious time and mailed them directly to her instead. Maybe that's the way to ensure the future of magic. Leave it to the kiddies. Hush up, Elroy, Ma hisses. I'm trying to think. For a moment, we all stand under the tent waiting for Ma to come up with a solution. Finally, Trub clears his throat and says, I'll take the boy back to Brooklyn, Ma. We can pick up the last dragon and come straight back here. Ma shakes her head. I appreciate the offer, Trub, but you don't know what state that dragon's in now. It could be too big to transport if the girl's been feeding it, and the 2 other dragons won't thrive until they've reunited with their sibling. No, this is something I need to handle myself. Ma holds out her hands, and Trub pulls her to her feet. Elroy picks up Ma's trench coat and holds it out as she slips her arms into the sleeves. I set Ma's sneakers in front of her, and she slips them on without unfastening the Velcro straps. Sis hands Ma her cane. So much for retirement, Ma says with a sigh. Then she pulls her purse straps over her shoulder and says, Come on, Jax. Time to go home. I don't want to question Ma, but we can't all fit inside the transporter. Trub puts his hand on my shoulders and says, I'm going to stay here with Elroy, Jax. You go with Ma. I'll catch up with you later. My heart is already heavy, but now my throat starts to close too. If Trub is a rolling stone, will I really see him again? I swallow hard and manage to squeak out one word. Promise? Trub pulls me close and gives me a hug. Promise. You are one brave boy, Jackson, but you've done enough for one day. Go home and give that big brain of yours a rest. Us old folks will take it from here. Trub bends down and presses his lips to the top of my head. Kiss your mama for me, he whispers in my ear before walking away from the tent. Elroy shakes my hand and looks at me over his glasses. Remember, Jax, he says solemnly, magic will find you, if you believe. Elroy turns and salutes Ma, who just rolls her eyes. Then he joins Trub, and together they head off down the red dirt road. I must make preparations for your journey, Sis says solemnly. She grabs hold of the wooden pole holding up the tent, and instantly everything around it disappears. The orange cloth, the stool, the reed mat, and the bowl of golden mangoes. I'll wait for you at the gate, Sis tells Ma. She says nothing to me before wading into the blue grass growing beneath the baobab trees. I watch Sis walk away with the staff in her hands, wishing I had the courage to blurt out a promise. I will return your dragon. But before I build up the nerve, a sudden gust of wind blows dust into my eyes, and when I clear them, Sis has disappeared. Chapter 12. Is Sis a witch? I ask. Ma shakes her head. There are different roles here in the realm of magic. Sis is a guardian, and she takes her job very seriously. She isn't angry with you, by the way. Could have fooled me, I mumble. She's mad at herself for trusting us with something so precious. We all failed her, not just you. That makes me feel a little better. I take a deep breath and say, Ma, can I give you a hug? Of course you can, she cries before wrapping her arms around me. I hold on tight for a long time. Then I step back and say, I'm sorry about not delivering all the dragons, but I sure am glad you're okay. Ma runs her thumb along my untamable eyebrows. Why wouldn't I be? Ma asks. You were attacked. I saw something charging straight at you. What did you see? Well, I pause and try to remember just what I saw from inside the transporter. The leaves behind you were shaking, and then there was a loud roar, and then you closed the door and the transporter took me back to Brooklyn. I try to sound respectful, but Mom must hear the resentment in my voice because she says, You understand why I did that, right? You probably wanted to protect the dragons, I say. And? I sigh. And I guess you wanted to protect me too, but I didn't want to go back to Brooklyn. Sure you did. That's why the transporter sent you home. It reads your intentions, remember? Ma starts walking down the road and I trail after her. But I was supposed to help you. I guess you don't want me to be your apprentice anymore, I say sullenly. When did I say that? Ma barks angrily. The first thing you gotta learn if you're going to work with me, Jax, is how to follow orders. When I say go, you go. Understand? Yes, ma'am. You did exactly what I needed you to do, and that helped a lot. Even though I just got yelled at, I feel a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Maybe I haven't lost my dream job after all. For a long while, we walk in silence. The baobab trees tower over us, and I start to feel their soothing energy settling over me. Ambrose said you wouldn't have sent me back without a plan. Ma laughs. Did that make you feel better? I nod, and Ma says, Then I'm glad Bro told you that. But the truth is, Jax, in this line of work, sometimes you don't have time to make a plan. Sometimes you just have to do whatever you've got to do, wherever you can. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I was happy to see that dinosaur coming straight at me. Ugly as sin it was, with more teeth than I could count. My eyes grow wide as I imagine Ma having to face the most ferocious dinosaur of all. A T-Rex? I doubt I'd be talking to you right now if a T-Rex had popped out of the bushes. No, it was a lot smaller than that, but it walked the same way and had a funny kind of flap on its head. I make a mental note to ask Vic what kind of dinosaur that might be. Then I ask, So what did you do? Why, I grabbed hold of that funny flap and swung around onto its back. Of course, that was after I zapped it a couple times with my cane. Not sure it felt a thing with that thick hide, though. Then I used a mild enchantment to make it more manageable. Ran like the wind, that dinosaur. I wish I could have seen Ma riding on the back of an enchanted dinosaur. I don't know if it's the baobabs or Ma's story that's making me feel so happy, but I can't stop grinning. I may have lost one of the dragons, but I've got Ma back, and we've got magic on our side. Ma pats me on the shoulder and says, That crystal you got for me came in real handy, Jax. I used it to send you back, and then I rode that dino as close as I could get to that volcano. All that energy helped me make a giant leap forward in time. Once I was back in the 21st century, I sent a signal to Sis. She gathered her lovelies, her helpers, and came to come get me. But how could you travel through time without a transporter? Same way I sent you back without me. Piezoelectricity, ever heard of that? I shake my head and listen carefully as Ma explains. The transporter is a device powered by the mind, and our brains give off electric signals. Well, crystals also give off an electric charge when they're under pressure, so I used a compression spell that allowed me to crush the crystal with my hand. That released enough energy to jumpstart the transporter, and you steered it with your thoughts. When I was ready to make my own journey, I just needed a way to contain all the energy I was trying to harness, from my own mind, the crystal, and the volcano. So I found a hollowed-out tree, used my compass to set the right coordinates, and then I got lucky. I look ahead and see that Sis is waiting for us next to the guardhouse. At least a dozen butterflies circle her head and shoulders, wrapping her in a rainbow veil. The lost dragon must be returned to me, Sis says solemnly. The girl is no thief. She now feels bound to the creature just as it feels bound to her. But those dragons, all of them, belong here, with me. They do not belong in your world. I know, Sis, Ma says, and I sure am sorry things turned out this way. But we'll get this mess cleaned up. Leave it with me. Sis sweeps her dark eyes over me. The boy cannot be trusted. Hold on now, Ma says as she drapes a protective armor on my shoulders. He's had a rough first day on the job, and Jack still has a lot to learn, but I trust him, and I'll need his help to set things right. I will provide the help that you need, Sis says. That won't be necessary, Ma says with a smile that seems a bit forced. I insist, Sis replies in a way that makes it clear her offer cannot be refused. Ma simply nods and Sis raises her hand. The butterflies gather round and Sis selects a fiery red one to accompany us back to Brooklyn. I watch as she cradles the butterfly in the palm of her hand, whispering instructions that Ma and I can't hear. The other butterflies wheel away on the breeze, and then the red one flits from Sis to me. "Hold out your hand," Ma says. I do as I'm told, and the red butterfly settles onto my palm. I don't see how a flimsy butterfly is going to help us transport a fast-growing dragon, but Ma and Sis must know something I don't. Sis runs her hand over Ma's neatly braided hair and says, "Remember your promise. When you return, you will stay." For a moment, Ma says nothing, and part of me hopes she'll refuse. How will I learn all there is to know about magic if Ma retires so soon? But after a few seconds, Ma finally nods. Sis opens her arms, and Ma steps into a hug that lasts a long time. I look at the peaceful smile on Ma's face and wonder if that's how I look when Mama holds me. Finally, Ma and Sis pull apart. Ma goes over to the guardhouse and opens the door. I try to follow her, but Sis blocks my way. "You have in your possession things that are precious to me. See that you treat them with care and return them unharmed, boy." "My name's Jax," I tell her in my most respectful voice, "and I won't let you down, Sis." I'm not sure why, but I decide to add, "I promise." One of Sis's eyebrows goes up in surprise. "A promise in this realm carries real weight, Jax." "It means a lot in my world, too," I tell her. Sis looks down at me, and I think I can see something in her eyes that wasn't quite there before. Respect. She steps aside, and I squeeze past Ma to stand inside the dark guardhouse. To my surprise, the butterfly's red wings start to pulse with light as they slowly open and close. Maybe this little helper will come in handy after all. "Until we meet again," I hear Sis say. Then the door closes, and Ma places her hands on my shoulders. "Ready, Jack?" she asks. "Ready, Ma," I reply. The guardhouse shudders and then shoots upward and takes us back to Brooklyn. Chapter 13. When we land, Ma pushes open the guardhouse door. I follow the butterfly out and see that we're facing the street instead of the park. A bus lumbers along Flatbush Avenue, and the few joggers going in and out of the park barely notice me and Ma as we emerge from the guardhouse. I scan all the benches and feel a little disappointed when I don't find Ambrose. I want him to know that Trub and I completed our mission. I want him to see that Ma's okay. Part of me feels like I have to prove myself, especially since Ma's had trouble with her helpers in the past. I want Ambrose to know I'm not like the others. Once we collect the dragons from Kavita, everyone will know that I'm serious about being Ma's apprentice. "Should we head over to Vic's place?" I ask Ma. She glances up at the darkening sky and shakes her head. "It's too late for a messy extraction, and it will be messy. We better think on it tonight and come up with a plan." Ma opens her purse and takes out the mint tin. "In you go," she says to the red butterfly. I don't see how it'll fit, but the butterfly perches on Ma's hand and instantly shrinks so it can settle inside the small tin. "Just until we get home," Ma says. She snaps the lid shut before tossing the tin back into her purse. Then Ma leans on her cane and heads up the block. "Your mama must be wondering what happened to you." I feel a pang of guilt as I think about what Mama's day must have been like. I traveled to the realm of magic while she was stuck in court. Did the judge rule in our favor, or are we homeless? I wonder what Mama will say when I tell her I want to work with Ma. The streetlights flicker on as night settles over the noisy, bustling city. I miss the peace and calm of the baobabs and hope it won't be too long before I get to see that world again. But if Ma goes back with me, she'll have to stay with Sis. Maybe Ma's plan to find the last dragon will take a long time. A messy extraction sounds like something painful that happens at the dentist's office. Even though I'm mad at Kavita for stealing the dragon, I hope no one gets hurt. Ma doesn't say a word as we walk back to her apartment building. But when we reach her block, she clears her throat and asks, "You know what you're going to tell your mom about today?" I nod and say, "The truth." I hope I sound confident, but Ma must know how nervous I am because she gives my shoulder a squeeze. I give myself a pep talk the rest of the way. Mama loves me. No matter what I say or do, that will never change. Mama is pacing back and forth in front of Ma's building. The clothes she ironed so carefully this morning are now rumpled, and her face shows how tired she feels. But when she sees us coming up the block, Mama rushes over, kneels down, and hugs me hard. "Jackson, where have you been? I've been worried sick." Mama pulls back and examines me from head to toe. She stands up and looks at Ma. "You need to get a cell phone." Ma just laughs. "What for?" I try to warn Ma with my eyes, but she's not looking at me. Mama hates it when people don't take her seriously. She puts one hand on her hip and says in a voice that's a bit too loud, "What for? So people can reach you, Ma. I didn't know what happened to you two. You could have left a note." Ma glances at me and wipes the smile off her face. "Sorry about that," she says in a sincere voice. "I didn't think we'd be gone so long, but things didn't quite go as planned." "They never do with you," Mama mutters under her breath. I decide now's a good time to change the subject. "How'd it go in court?" I ask Mama. She smiles and strokes my cheek. "We gotta stay, baby. That means the landlord can't go ahead with the eviction." "So we can stay in our apartment?" I ask hopefully. "For now," Mama says, "but I still have to go back to court next week." "Well," Ma says, "I'm glad it all worked out. I better go see about supper." "Wait!" I grab hold of Ma's hand to keep her from walking away. Then I reach out and grab hold of Mama's hand too. This is my chance. I can be the bridge between them. "Maybe we should stay with Ma for a while," I suggest. Mama frowns and tries to pull away, but I won't let go of her hand. "You can stay if you want," Mama tells me. "I need to keep an eye on the apartment." "But there's no water," I remind her. "No water?" Ma looks kind of mad, so I tell her more about our awful landlord. Last week he turned off the gas too, so we couldn't cook. Mama looks embarrassed. Maybe I said too much. "We can manage with the microwave," she tells Ma. "You can't manage without running water," Ma replies. "You better come upstairs." Mama doesn't budge. "The judge ordered the landlord to turn the water back on within 48 hours. Ma just grunts. "Don't hold your breath." Then she coughs a couple of times before saying, "Listen, Alicia, I know I made a fuss this morning and I'm sorry for that. You just caught me at a bad time, but I want you to know that you're always welcome here. You and Jax could stay in your old room. It hasn't changed since you left." Mama squeezes my hand a little too hard and looks at the ground. Mama taught me everything I know about manners, so I know it's not polite to ignore an offer of hospitality. Ma tries again. "I know things haven't been right between us, but you'll always be family to me." That reminds me of something I promised Trub. I pull at Mama's arm until she bends low enough so I can plant a kiss on her cheek. "Grandpa says hi," I say quietly. Mama looks at me hard. "Who says hi?" I swallow and force myself not to look at Ma. If I look at her, she'll think I need help, and I don't. I've already decided I'm not going to lie to Mama. I take a deep breath and say, "I met my grandfather today." Mama rolls her lips together. That's what she does when she's trying not to lose her temper and say something she might regret. Mama's lips are sealed, but I can almost hear her counting to 10. That's what she tells me to do whenever I get angry. Finally, she opens her mouth and asks, "How did that happen?" Ma coughs softly, but I need to tell this story on my own. I went with Ma to make a delivery today." Mama quickly rolls and then unrolls her lips. I can tell she's angry, but not with me. "You did, huh? That sounds interesting." Mama's talking to me, but she's glaring at Ma. I try to get her eyes back on me. "It was, but then we got separated and Trub, your father, he came to help me find Ma, and he took me out for a burger." Mama gives me a disapproving frown, so I add, "I like him. He's nice." Mama rolls her eyes this time and says, "Never trust a first impression, Jax. It takes time to really get to know somebody." "True," Ma says, "although sometimes you just gotta go with your gut." "Stay out of this, Ma." I guess Ma didn't hear the warning in Mama's voice because she says, "I'm just trying to tell the boy." Mama explodes. "I don't need you to tell my son anything. I left him with you for one day and you've already gotten him mixed up in your mess." Ma leans heavily on her cane, and for a moment, I think she's going to walk away. But she doesn't. Instead, she leans forward so her face is just a few inches away from Mama's. "You know what I am, Alicia. I'm a private person, but I don't believe in keeping secrets. I told Jax the truth. You should try it sometime." Uh-oh. Mama's eyes flash with anger. "Don't you tell me how to raise my son." Ma just shrugs. "I didn't come to you. You brought Jax to me." "I had no choice," Mama cries in exasperation. "Sure you did," Ma says. "You could have taken him to court with you, but you chose to leave him with me. Whether you like it or not, things are going to be different from now on." "What's that supposed to mean?" Mama asks. I tug her hand so Mama looks at me instead of Ma. I've decided to become Ma's apprentice, I say with a mixture of fear and pride. Mama blinks twice but says nothing at first. I force myself not to look away even when I see tears filling up my mother's eyes. Oh, Jax, Mama finally says with a sigh. Then she lets go of my hand and sinks onto the steps that lead up to Ma's building. Ma gently peels away my fingers from her hand and says, I'm going to start supper. Come on up whenever you're ready. As she climbs the stairs, Ma puts a hand on Mama's shoulder, but Mama doesn't respond. I watch Ma go inside her building, and then I take a seat next to my mother. Her fingers are laced together, and she holds them over her mouth like a net that will catch words she doesn't want me to hear. The tears in Mama's eyes don't fall. After a while, she puts her hands on her knees and asks, Where did you go today, Jax? I try to use as few words as possible. First, we went back in time, by accident. Then Trub took me to the realm of magic to find Ma. Then we came home. He took me there once, Mama tells me in a strange, sad voice. I know, I say quietly. Trub told me you didn't like it much. Mama shakes her head and puts her arm around my shoulders so she can pull me close. This world is the only one that matters, Jax. This is where you live. This is where you belong. Mama's been through a lot today. It would be easier to agree with her, but I try a different approach. But what if we could make this world better? Don't you think we should try? Mama thinks for a moment. Then she shifts on the stairs that we're sitting face to face. Magic won't bring your daddy back, Jax. Mama's voice is so soft and low that at first I'm not sure I heard her correctly. But then my cheeks start to burn and I feel hot tears filling up my eyes. Mama becomes a blur. I blink a few times and Mama comes back into focus. Her face is full of love, and that gives me the courage that I need. I know that, Mama. Bad things happen and sometimes there's nothing we can do. But this time, there is something I can do. I want to help Ma return the last dragon. Mama's eyebrows shoot up. Dragon? Oh, Jax. Mama shakes her head slowly like there's no hope for me, like I'm lost to her already. I rush on trying to reassure her. I can do it, Mama, and I have to because it's sort of my fault that the dragon is still stuck here in Brooklyn. You don't have to do anything, Jax, Mama says firmly. Ma can handle her business without you. It's her job, not yours. I know, I tell Mama, but Ma's going to retire soon, so I need to do this now, Mama. Please. Mama doesn't say anything for what feels like a really long time. Then she scoots closer and puts her arm around me once more. Why don't you tell me what it was like for you in that other world? I open my mouth to say, sure, but suddenly my stomach growls, no, roars with hunger. Mama laughs and pokes me in the belly. You got a dragon in there? She asks with a smirk. I laugh too and clutch my empty stomach. Can I tell you about the dragons and the dinosaurs and the baobabs over supper? Mama kisses me on the forehead and says, sure. I take Mama's hand, and together we go upstairs to Joy and Ma. And that is the end of Dragons in a Bag by Zetta Elliott. Thank you so much for joining me and reading this story together. If you are playing along with BB's Summer Reading Bingo, Dragons in a Bag does check a couple of your boxes. You can check this one off for any of the following squares. It'll fill a fantasy novel, an Own Voices novel, a book with dragons, of course, and also attending a virtual library program as well. As you can see, we didn't actually return the dragons in this book, but I'll let you in on a cool secret. There is a sequel, The Dragon Thief, so you can actually continue on this adventure with Jax in book number 2 and see if they are finally able to return that dragon to the magical realm. So next week we are going to be starting our final book of our weekly read-alouds this summer, and that is Meet Yasmin by Sadia Faruqi. And this is a series of different stories about second grader Yasmin. She's always on the lookout for sort of these big aha moments in life. She's always looking for answers and trying to solve different problems. And Yasmin is this really bold and spirited character. She has a huge imagination, which sometimes means she gets a little bit carried away. And Yasmin likes to try her hand at all different kinds of things in life. She tries being a builder, a fashionista, a painter, an explorer. So between school and home, Yasmin and all of this creativity and curiosity that she has inside of her, she's really ready to take on sort of any adventure. So you can tune in next week and we'll be starting Meet Yasmin. And I will see you back here again next week at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.